Reporting live from New York 1 chopper, an Oscorp truck carrying plutonium has been hijacked. A police chase is in progress.
What's great is that all the action sequences are necessary. They're supported by the story. And without a story, you don't have a movie, you know? No one wants to just see action sequence after action sequence after action sequence. But what captures our imagination as an audience is the story, is the hero's journey, the story of this young man, and the story of all these other characters as well. It's a great, rich, multi-dimensional, multi-stranded story. You don't just care about one person, you care about everyone, including the villains, which is really important.
What was really cool was I'm not actually driving it. The stunt driver who doubled me a lot for that stuff was sitting behind me, and he was masked. And he was looking at a screen and actually doing all the driving, which was really cool. I felt like a real badass, you know, I could do all this great maneuvering around the thing, but he was behind me the entire time, and it was fantastic.
Okay, stop it, stop it! Oh, come on! Hey, wait, come back here! Heel! Gotcha! Now! Oh my God! I spilled a hot latte all over your nachos. I did not. Stay right there! And you? Stay right there! Wait. Hey!
These new villains who are, you know, really, really interesting and have a lot of, you know, incredible backstory, especially Harry.
Harry Osborn. It's been 10 years. You're gonna want to see us.
Oscorp had you under surveillance. Why? Isn't that the question of the day?
It's more intense, and it's more epic, and it's more multi-layered, and it's the script is amazing, you know. It's like a really kind of like a script you can sink your teeth into, and I think there's gonna be moments of like, there'll be light moments, but there'll definitely be like the dark moments too, and I think it'll kind of bring you on ups and downs and take you on a ride that is even a better ride than the last one was, for sure.
Give me one good reason why I should trust you.
Because I need you.
You need me.
You need
me.
That blue it just blew everybody's mind, you know, the way they captured it. And then with the lights hovering, it made it sort of devilishly angelic.
Lie to me!
And so once I got into that blue, even my voice changed. It was more, you know, I have no idea. I felt like, you know, because his vocal cords had been burned. You know, so you want to know why? It was that. And then I would just look in the mirror for hours, just looking with the blue contacts and everything, and then finally honing in with my manager, Jamie King. She's like, go, keep trying to find it, keep trying to find it. And we found it. And once we found it, we knew that Electro was going to be someone to deal with.
We can change the world. Then let's go catch a spider. Give me one good reason why I should trust you.
Because I need you.
You need me.
You need
me.
And got awesome. Tail stick.
Mark.
Ready, set. Background and action.
Hi. What are you doing here? Osborn?
Ready and action.
I spilled a hot latte all over your muscles. I did not.
Stay right where you are. Freeze! Freeze! Do not move!
And action.
Get out the way! Get out! Clear the area! Clear the area! Sir!
And electro.
You should get away from those cables! Crouch down. Okay. I'm gonna do this because it's good. Okay, good. All right?
3, 2, 1, action!
Stop it! Stop! I say stop! Go! All right, Ed, let's go.
You need a hand with this?
This is a police situation. I have it under control. You're my eyes and ears.
Yes, eyes.
You're my eyes and ears. We're all good, everybody. We know each other. We're fine. What's your name? Hey, Sparkle.
You lied to me! Quit shooting me!
Three, 2, 1, go! Three, 2, 1, forward! Cut that.
Here we go. Let's do it.
Hit me with it.
Don't tell me I look amazing with your big brown doe eyes.
And background. And 3, 2, 1, action!
We've used a radioactive isotope to genetically engineer these super spiders.
I've already seen them coming, and there's a little bit more anxiety.
Okay, cool.
Make yours count for something. Fight for what matters to you, no matter what.
Building upon the animation style from the Amazing Spider-Man reboot of 2012, this latest installment gives us 3 new villains along with the creative opportunity to take Spider-Man's stunts and physicality to new heights. In this iteration, Peter Parker has finessed his swinging skills and he's playing kind of a thrill-seeker in a few sequences, swinging through the city canyons and enjoying the adrenaline rush of leaping from tall buildings and free-falling until the last possible second before firing his web shooters. And when that web goes tight, physics takes over. Director Mark Webb is particularly sensitive about making sure that the physics remain grounded and believable. To meet that directive, special tools were written by our development team to assure that gravity and other physical properties remained in check, wherever possible, and if cheats became necessary, the tools served as a guide for compensating or countering the action to assure that everything remains in balance. Artistic inspiration, as always, came from the comic book illustrations, and there's an endless source of material in the Marvel archives. The real challenge is to put those poses in motion, not just stringing a series of them together, but making sure that each pose is purposeful and the transitions are motivated by the action at hand, and of course selling the natural human mechanics along the way. And that's where the movement studies of our production stunt double came in handy. Animators use this reference as a guide, picking up on physical cues and extrapolating subtleties to broader performances. This process also inspired new actions that hadn't been seen before, like the overhand scramble, as we like to call it, a maneuver that he uses to accelerate himself up the web during chase sequences to make sure he's always gaining on his opponent. Animation also played a role in scenes where audiences would assume they're looking at practical photography, like the final standoff with Electro where Spider-Man is completely animated throughout, including the close-up performances. This gave the director the flexibility to add additional shots well after principal photography was complete. On a smaller scale, but equally important, is the muscle animation. The silhouettes and volumes are animated to specific lighting conditions for each shot, so that the contours of the sculpt are picked up in the specular areas of the render, just like in the comic book artwork where the muscle shapes are so clearly and artistically defined in dramatic lighting. Then a simulation pass adds jiggle to the muscle masses so they resonate realistically in response to both internal and external forces. And notice the wrinkling detail in his suit. The new suit design is much looser than it was in previous iterations, so a full-on cloth sim gave us the opportunity to bring out another layer of detail, with wrinkles driven not only by his movement but also react to the environment, like fluttering in the breeze during freefall.
Electro is a villain deeply rooted in Spider-Man lore from the comic books who is able to control electricity. The team at Sony Pictures Imageworks developed and built the visual effects elements for Electro's big screen debut in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Played in the movie by Jamie Foxx, Electro starts out as overlooked Oscorp employee Max Dillon. He gains his powers after an accident at Oscorp's electric eel lab, in which he falls into a tank of genetically enhanced electric eels. He is mutated into a supercharged mass of energy with misunderstood powers. Director Mark Webb stressed to Imageworks that he wanted to see something unique and unexpected for Electro's effects. Our inspiration for the look of his surface effect came from lightning and how it lights atmospheric volumes like storm clouds, and how neurological networks and synapses would carry the high power voltage through the body. So the look we developed was based off the idea that there is an electrical storm active inside of his body. He is glowing from within, as if his skin is wrapped around energy that is moving through his mutated nervous system. Depending on his mood, the storm can change speed and color. To create the effect, we begin with a photographed plate of Jamie Foxx with special effects makeup designed and applied by K&B Makeup. We then track the image so the effects move in unison with Jamie's skin. Animators provide nuances to the track to maintain Jamie's performance. We created a semblance of internal structure to give familiar details for the light inside to bounce around realistically, and created flesh and vein volumes for the energy to light up. Next, our simulation artists animate energy flow along the internal network. These are converted into light to make the internal volumes glow. Our compositing team integrates these passes into Jamie's performance for the final comp.
A world without mercy. A world without Spider-Man.
Electro is a villain from the Spider-Man comic books who can control electricity. As Electro learns to control his power, he realizes he can dematerialize into electromagnetic particulate. He can then rematerialize in an effect that we intended to relate to the coalescence of ionized gases. We begin by animating a full Electro to indicate where the energy will gather. Next, our simulation artists create multiple layers of electricity and gas effects, playing off similar internal illumination networks that built the skin treatment. The effects layers reinforce the motif of nebula and electrical energy plasma and refer back to the ocean world for movement, color, and shapes. After Electro discovers his ability to materialize, he's able to trigger the phenomena at will. While the idea of transporting has been done before, these early tests are part of the development to keep the look unexpected and unique, and keep within the design themes of Electro's character. As he learns to control his powers, Electro uses his ability to its full advantage in his battle with Spider-Man at Oscorp's power plant. Electro is a villain from the Spider-Man comic books who can control electricity. Director Mark Webb tasked ImageWorks from the beginning to come up with something that was not your typical look for Electro's electricity. This was an exciting opportunity for us, especially for developing the look of the bolts, which is Electro's method of defense. We drew inspiration from Tesla arcs and plasma balls, high voltage burn-off, and of course, lightning. To give the bolts their own character, we studied the look of space nebula plasma. The bolts are comprised of multiple layers incorporating these elements. First, there is a pre-charged plasma effect, and then a pre-arc, like tentacles reaching for a target. 8 layers provide a complex texture for the main bolt event. Because Electro received his powers from eels, we created visual themes related to the color and movement of sea life. The bolts are a great example of that design theme, with the shapes reminiscent of coral branches, and color palettes of blue and orange and reds. The bolts are also unique in that they are not just a simulation effect. Our animation team animates the bolts as they would a character. Animators determine their size, the distance they travel, and they're able to elevate the sense of danger by intertwining the animation tightly against Spidey's action.
Away from the cables right now! Sir! Let me see your hands, please! Stop! It's not my fault! Sir! Stop! I'm gonna need for you! Please! Stop! For your own safety, the safety of patients in this area. Rise face down with your legs spread, hands on top of your head like you see them.
Who are you?
Don't you know? I'm Electro.
Electro is played by Jamie Foxx, and for most of the close-ups, animation and effects are an embellishment of plate photography, leaving the actor's performance intact. To produce this effect, animators meticulously track the soft tissue of the face so that effects applied downstream would remain perfectly registered to his performance. But in a few cases, shots like this one were added later in production and required a fully animated performance from the ground up. Once we got to the wider shots, animation generally took over, especially where the actor was suspended on wires in the original photography. The director wanted to make sure that Electro was floating under his own power rather than being slaved to a wire rig, and justified replacing those shots with animated versions of the character. From there, we had to find creative ways for him to transport himself from A to B, as seen here in the early e-ghosting tests. An interesting touch that we added later in the process was to have Electro momentarily materialize midway through the e-ghost. It's almost subliminal in some cases, but it gives you the sense that there's a human element in there, a personality of sorts embodied in the e-ghost trails, that have a very direct and tactile effect on Spider-Man as he does here in The Punch. The Green Goblin is played by actor Dane DeHaan. We're first introduced to him as Harry Osborn, who ultimately mutates into Spider-Man's next nemesis in the film. For the close-up flying scenes, the actor rode on a mechanical rig which was controlled hydraulically, and an animated version of the glider was added later by the team at Imageworks. The Goblin himself was also built as a digital character for the broader flying sequences, where he's fully animated to look like he's manipulating his glider through a method of weight shifting. Kind of like a slalom skier with independent control of each foot, and it's the subtle manipulation of his feet that drive the glider's multiple control surfaces. These animated details are coupled into the suit as well, with armored components over a biomechanical interior with lots of moving parts. As our digital Goblin was introduced into more shots, it became evident that it held up well enough to be qualified as much more than a distant stunt double rig, and more of a fully functioning character wherever the director felt an extra shot of the Goblin might be needed. We're also introducing a digital Gwen in this series of shots that lead to the dramatic standoff at the top of the clock tower. And finally we have the Rhino, played by Paul Giamatti. A practical rig was built for the actor to establish eye lines and assure that appropriate shadows were being cast on the actor's face and upper body. His head would ultimately be removed and tracked into the animated version of the suit, which went through many design variations through the course of production. While visual development was underway, animators explored different movement styles to help drive the final configuration of the design. One of the creative and technical challenges is that the Rhino had to function as both a biped and a quadruped, and be able to transition between the two states in some logical fashion, while still accommodating a full arsenal of weapons, including machine guns and rocket launchers. The end result is a strong and powerful opponent for Spider-Man, and the final standoff between them brings the film to its dramatic conclusion.
Is wreaking havoc on Midtown.
I am the Rhino!
I cut so I kill you. I destroy you.
You want me to come down there so you can kill me?
Yes.
I'll be right there. No place like home.